South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem joins me now. Governor, your reaction to Donald Trump's statement on abortion?
Well, the president is exactly right. And his thoughts and his heart is with women in crisis that are facing these situations with precious babies. And that Roe v. Wade gave this right back to the states, and that's exactly where it should be. Every state will look different. We may hold personal beliefs as elected officials. I'm personally pro-life, but every state will look different, and it is about the will of the people. And I've never seen the federal government come in on a tough issue and offer a solution and fix it. In fact, the reality of a federal bill passing through the Senate and through the House just isn't there. So why are we talking about it? People have more of an input and more of a way to frame their state laws and what it looks like in their state with our state legislators who are their neighbors and their businessmen and women. Talk to them and have that conversation. And that's exactly what President Trump was saying.
Do you believe, Governor, that Republican governors that are pushing for 6-week abortion bans, to have that be on the ballot this election, is politically risky for Republicans?
I think that we've shown that in many of these swing states, that those over 80% of the women in those states are more than a single issue voter. We should be talking to them about the issues that they care about as well, such as the border and gas prices, the economy, how they're taking care of their kids. These governors, we all have opinions and we all have personal beliefs and values, but the will of our people in our state decides what the law is. I don't get to be a dictator, and no other governor gets to as well. We can voice our opinions, but at the end of the day, the people should decide. So that's what I would encourage Republican governors to do, is to listen, to talk to their people, and to recognize that the Democrats are the extremists on this. That overwhelmingly, the vast majority in these swing states, these Democrats and those that are these single-issue voters, they want abortion up until that baby is born and maybe even after that baby is born. Yeah. Why don't we just talk about loving people? Why don't we just talk about taking care of people that are in crisis, giving them the resources and the information that they need, and win the hearts and minds of people instead of constantly just picking fights and arguing and talking about some kind of a federal ban that just in reality is never going to happen.
It's a great point. The media does have a way of getting in there and dividing this country. We saw it yesterday. NCAA Women's Championship, South Carolina coach. She was asked about whether men should play women's college basketball. Here's what she said.
I was wondering if you would tell me your position on that issue.
Damn, you got deep on me, didn't you? I'm under the opinion of if you're a woman, you should play. If you consider yourself a woman and you want to play sports or vice versa, you should be able to play. That's my opinion.
If you consider yourself a woman, you should be able to play.
Yeah, it was hard watching that press conference because she was just so wrong. And she hasn't had this battle yet in women's sports. We've seen it in other sports, but in women's basketball, she hasn't had to face that. And she can have that opinion. And I bet as soon as men start stepping on that women's basketball court, she'd change her mind quickly, because she would see opportunities gone for young women, scholarships gone for young women. I was super impressed with her after the game, how she talked about uncommon favor from the Lord and how she talked about her faith. And her team was incredibly disciplined. I was impressed with their defense and how, their offensive boards were amazing. So I think she's a good coach. She just obviously was put in a press conference before a big game and asked a question that she got wrong, because there definitely should never be men playing in women's sports. And if a man shows up, let's say the men's team from her college wanted to play her girls and her women, I wonder how she would like that game and how that would result. And for any other NCAA men's Sweet 16 team playing her team, how she'd feel about that and if that was a fair game. So it's just our physical bodies are different. Our gifts and talents are different. Women sports was created for women to have opportunities, to have success, to build confidence, and to go on and to do bigger and better things. Right. So she was wrong.
Well said, Kristi Noem.
And we'll try to get her back on track. I don't know.
We'll see what we can do with her. I'll talk. You know what? I'll talk to her.
You do that.
We'll have her get it together. Thank you so much, Governor.
Okay.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.